created growth and allowed you guys to be better listeners and better counselors to people who need your help now.
Especially if people have children, we believe that we need to be the best dang example for them.
Funny, I once had a medical doctor, tell me that his wife probably knows more about nutrition than he does. And I was just like, dude, you went to medical school. Like, what is that?
You get the job, you get the house, you have the kids, and then at the end of the day, it's just like, even if you have all that, people are still unhappy. And
yeah, 22 minutes to the nearest park in suburbia? That's crazy.
we're divvying up our relationship into like chores and transactions, and it feels more like work. It doesn't feel easy, it doesn't feel natural, it just feels like a business agreement.
Well, welcome back to it. We're here for another episode. Glad you guys joined us. Remember, subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. We're on most platforms, and we just appreciate you guys watching and listening and your support. And, click that like button too. We always want that extra algorithm to work in our favor, so we appreciate it. And we got a really cool episode today. We've got Nancy Ma and Brian Hoa. And they moved from a small suburban home to a big country farmhouse on the Niagara Escarpment in Ontario, Canada, because they saw how city life was contributing to the stress of their marriage. And in this process, they prioritized their marriage and recognized that their relationship was the foundation for a happy home. And their environment where they were living was causing stress that they just had trouble overcoming. And so they figured out a simple process of healing and transforming their relationship and began sharing it with their clients. And today, they're very passionate about helping couples heal and transform their marriages. And they also offer online couples therapy, and we're going to put that info in the show notes for you guys to check out. And they've created a free Golden Marriage Method Masterclass at their website, goldenmarriage.com. So we're really happy to have on Nancy Ma and Brian Hoa. Thanks for being here, you two.
Thank you.
So nice to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. So you guys didn't always have the fairy tale marriage. You seem to now, because I've watched your videos, and you guys are happy as clams, and that's great. That's how every marriage should.
We were just acting, dude.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I better change my questions then. No, but so you guys made some changes, but there was some problems prior to those changes. So talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, we have been together for 23 years, met in high school, and from early on, our dynamic was kind of volatile. We'd have a typical kind of like hot-cold relationship where we were very passionate, we loved really big, but we also fought really hard. And, we just didn't know how to crack the code. Like, we just didn't know how to get over these really big fights. But we did what we thought we were supposed to do. We got married and had a kid, had the job, got married, had a kid. We were both physiotherapists. And when we started working with our patients and clients, and actually Brian was doing sales, we saw that a lot of people were struggling with their body and their health, and it really often related to their lifestyle and the stresses that they were experiencing and how that transformed in their body and affected their health. So after we had our first daughter, we said to ourselves that we couldn't do what everyone else was doing and try to follow everybody else's dream and get stuck in that trap where we're living this life of shoulds and have-tos. And that was really impacting us and creating a lot of stress. So we said, let's get out of here. Let's create a better life for our family. Let's prioritize our marriage over money, over careers, over this fairy tale life. And let's do what's right for us and our family.
Great. And I mean, you guys made a huge jump because you left suburban Toronto for like rural life. That's bold. So like what made you decide that?
So, I mean, I was always open to moving, but she said, oh, well, because my parents are here, we're never going to move. But because of our because we had a daughter at the time, we had to drive 22 minutes to the nicest nearest park, and I was like, oh well, I mean, we're just open to moving. And she saw something at some yoga conference that said, yoga retreat center for sale, and that just sparked a dream, a vision for her. And so when she told me, let's go look at a property, I'm like, why? She's like, well, because we might just want to move. I'm like, okay, I'm calling the real estate agent right now. So, 'cause really, it was her dream of having more land, more opportunities for our little one to kind of like roam around.
Yeah.
That was really the driver.
Yeah. 22 minutes to the nearest park in suburbia? That's crazy.
Arendelle
Well, I
Park. It
mean,
was.
you have these little playground parks
Yeah.
that are kind of
Pseudo
everywhere.
parks, right?
Yeah, but we wanted, a big forest to play in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the 22 minutes on the QEW was the closest to a big forest. And now we live in like it's our backyard, and we just knew just from seeing all these patients and working with all these people who were in pain and have chronic illnesses, it's their lifestyle, right? And then when that sucks and your marriage is tested and in turmoil, it really affects your parenting, it affects your health, it affects everything. And we said we got to get out of this while we can, while we're still young, while we can, really prevent a lot of these issues that we're seeing in the clinic.
Now, don't get us wrong. There was a lot of opposition and obstacle. In fact, her parents were really upset about it because we only lived one street away. We had all dinners together and
Free babysitting. We left free babysitting.
they were saying we were stealing their grandchild away from them, and they were
Oh,
really
wow.
upset. They were really super upset that we have.
That's a guilt trip, man.
It is to go against the grain, right? It's
Yeah.
and this is at the heart of it. This is what we believe to be true, and that impacts a lot of marriages. Is that you end up losing yourself, and as a couple, you lose yourself because you're trying to fit this mold of what a modern marriage is supposed to look like. You finish school, you get the job, you get the house, you have the kids, and then at the end of the day, it's just like, even if you have all that, people are still unhappy and they're still stressed and they're chasing all the time. And we were like, we're not living this life to impress our parents, our friends, our clients. We got to live this life for us. Like, what feels right for us, what's going to be good for us and our family. And when we made that the focus, we got everything we wanted and more.
Yeah, but that sounds all really like good and dandy, right? But we still had to deal with our own challenges that came up, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, but that's good because now you're helping, and I want to get into this a little bit later, but now you're helping other couples. So having been through the ringer yourselves, you can relate more to the challenges of the people that you guys are counseling now. So I think, you know, it's hard that you guys had to struggle, but then it obviously created growth and allowed you guys to be better listeners and better counselors to people who need your help now. Would you not agree?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we just strongly believe in the family unit, especially if people have children. We believe that we need to be the best dang example for them. And that's how they will have a solid relationship whenever they get married or, whatever they do in their future. Like, we just need to be their example. Like,
There's a lot of talk now on community. Everyone's all about like having a community, but a family, a marriage is the smallest unit of community. Like you have to start with that. If your marriage isn't good, you can't build community at work. You can't build community at church or wherever else people are searching for it. At the end of the day, we want connection. Or we crave connection. We need connection as human beings.
Yeah, that's a great point, Nancy. And I once heard a preacher say, if you've won the war at home, you've won. And I just thought that was such a profound statement because, marriage isn't something easy. It's not what people envision when they get into it. A lot of the times they don't know. I mean, we can never know what we're getting into getting married because we just having, if we've never been married, then what reference do we have, right? Other than our parents or maybe other family members. But I mean, yeah, you just nailed it there. You have to have that healthy life and environment at home before you can create any other kind of healthy community around you. So it's great that you guys are able to were able to identify that and really work on that. So drop some of your wisdom on me now. So talk about the husband and wife roles and how you guys see them in a marriage. There's a lot of different perspectives on this. You know, there's the traditional, there's the the 50s model that, some boomers or maybe older people believe that, women shouldn't be working or in the workplace, and things have really changed and evolved over the years. So how do you guys see the differences in the husband and wife roles in a marriage?
That's an amazing question. That rolls into our 50-50 trap and the feminist booby trap. Let's get to it.
Yeah, so we are somewhere in between what was this patriarchal, conventional, traditional system of a family, and I feel like we've overcorrected and we've come so far. The pendulum has swung so far in the opposite direction with the feminist movement of, and what we call this the feminist booby trap, where women or girls are raised to believe that we can do anything, be everything, be there for everyone, everywhere, at all times. And when that happens, now we're creating a matriarchy where the woman is a leader. And so you have these dynamics where it's so unbalanced in a marriage, and it can feel transactional. And this is a lot of the problems that we're seeing in relationships, where they're lacking true connection. They're not feeling like really understood and seen and heard. And it's more of like, when you talk about roles, it's just like, okay, you do this, it's 50-50, right? So everyone is striving for it has to be equal. So it's 50-50. You do this, if you do these chores, I'll do these chores, and then we're equal. And then so we're divvying up our relationship into like chores and transactions, and it feels more like work. It doesn't feel easy, it doesn't feel natural, it just feels like a business agreement.
Yeah, do you think that's a cultural influence on the way people think that
100%.
causes that strain?
Yeah, because what she was mentioning, this whole feminist thing where women can do everything. Well, then they start believing the story that they should do everything. And then they get controlling to the point where it's like, well, nothing's really happening the way that I want, so I need to be the controller of everything. And then they get overwhelmed and burnt out. And then the family is, and we're not blaming women, by the way. We're just kind
It's
of
the cultural influences you're
Right.
talking about.
Right.
It leads to this dynamic where women are taught that we should do everything and we can't do everything. And so then men, their husbands or their partners, are left in the dark feeling like, okay, well, if you're controlling everything, you're leading, you're the breadwinner, you're taking care of the kids, you're doing everything. Well, I don't really know my role.
Yeah, but if I don't let you, though, then this is such a new concept to me because I don't actually watch the news or pay attention to those things. But if you do that as a man, then you're known as this toxic masculine. Like, you don't
Get in the way of the woman.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. And so it leaves marriages, I think people who are married feeling overwhelmed and lost, not understanding their roles, not understanding what they really want. Because at the end of the day, when women are chasing what we think we're supposed to be,
Yeah.
and then realizing, I don't even want to do all these things. I'm tired. I actually don't want to do all those things. And then it leaves them resenting each other and blaming each other for what went wrong.
So based on the pressure that women feel because of those cultural influences, what do you both think the man can do in that relationship to try to ease that burden or reverse some of that psychology where the woman feels she has to do everything? Do you think the man can help her in that?
Yeah, certainly the man can, but definitely it's a partnership, right? Because if the woman constantly believes the story that she needs to do everything, take control of everything, it's hard for the man to be like, oh, well, we got to change that. That's a wrong thought. What the man can do, though, however, we can actually step up and take responsibility, take initiative, and do the things that we are good at, and then showing the woman that we can be trusted to do those things, rather than just kind of like hide and be like, oh, well, she's just taking care of everything. So we like, what's our role? What's our job? And that's why the clarity is so important between the couple.
Yeah, I totally agree. When roles aren't clearly defined, you can get in those murky waters and not understand what each is supposed to contribute to a marriage. So that's a really good point you guys make. Do you think that our pasts have a direct influence on how we approach personal relationships, particularly a marriage?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of how we show up in our relationship comes from what we were taught from childhood, from at birth. What we see in our parents' relationships, what we see on Full House, or Growing Pains. If people remember those shows, it's what we've learned, from watching other people and having these cultural influences, and that it gets ingrained in us as this is the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you asked earlier, Mike, about what can the man do, I think really it's about both people taking responsibility to bring awareness to your own life. And what, when we talk about roles, it's just taking the time to actually know what you want and how you want to contribute, instead of it being, okay, you're a man, you do these chores, and I'm a woman, I do these chores, because that's old age, and that didn't work either.
Yeah.
Right? But it's taking the time to get to know ourselves, and the responsibility is working on your own health, mentally, physically, and emotionally, and knowing what you want, and bringing that and speaking your truth in the relationship.
That's it.
Yeah, it does make sense, and I agree. And health is such a big one. I mean, you guys were talking about that earlier, that just the stresses of life that so many people experience today takes a toll on their health. And when your body's not healthy, that just takes things to another level of challenges with everything around you, including relationships. It's hard to nurture a relationship when you're sick. And so many people are sick today, like what you guys were saying, just the people that you were treating and the illness that you guys were exposed to as therapists before. That's a big one. And I mean, it's so amazing if you can, A, be health conscious yourself, but also have a partner who's on the same page that way. I'm very fortunate because my wife is probably just as health conscious as I am, if not more so. Probably more so. She has a little more discipline than I do when it comes to food choices and stuff.
Yeah.
She's really good that way. She'll have a little square of chocolate. I'll eat like the whole thing. So I'm terrible. So she's a good example to me. But if one of us was different that way and just eating fast food all the time and not taking care of ourselves, I can't help but think that would strain our relationship. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
man!
for
Like
sure.
in university, college, when we were together, when we would be eating McDonald's, we'd be eating the same McDonald's, right? But when we were health conscious, man, like we both had to be on that bandwagon.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was the same with us. We used to do the same things. We'd
yeah.
be at said restaurant ourselves and, many times, sometimes multiple times a week earlier on. That's when you're young and you can do anything and you can eat anything, right? And then reality sets in your mid 30s, early 40s, and it's like, oh, okay, I can't eat this anymore.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And, we did do those things together, but it really was me who took the initiative and say, wait, I think this isn't good for us anymore.
And then we started going to the gym and like stop eating those things. But because we went to school for physical therapy, and it was like, oh shoot, part of our identity should be
Being healthy.
being healthy.
If
Yeah,
we're
absolutely.
Yeah, and and generally I would say that it is more of if for the woman who feels like they need to be the nurturer in the home, it tends to fall on our shoulders because that's more of our natural state to take care of the well-being, to take care of, I mean, we were the fruit gatherers, right? We would, you know, feed the babies and take care of everyone's well-being. And so, yeah, it was me who initiated the, okay, let's shift our diet so that we're eating natural whole foods and all that stuff. So, even in relationships where we have friends and clients, even where the husband is the doctor, but it's still the woman who takes care of the well-being for the relationship, because that's the way it goes.
Yep. It's funny. I once had a medical doctor, tell me that his wife probably knows more about nutrition than he does, and I was just like, "Dude, you went to medical school. Like, what is that?"
There's very
But
little nutrition taught in medical school.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't start me. That's
Yeah.
another episode, Nancy. I won't even go there. Um, so, talk about compromise in a
Ooh.
relationship. Like, there definitely needs to be compromise when two people come together, and that shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. But you're now sharing your life, your entire life with somebody else. So there has to be some compromises there. Am I right?
We love this topic because compromise means something different to different people, but societally, socially, it means generally a certain thing that you can like easily place in a box. We actually don't agree with the traditional compromise, what's out there.
So,
Because
so
yeah.
let's talk about, I think what we understand compromise to be is you have to give something up, something that you want, so the partner can get what they want, because you can't always get what you want. Would you agree?
That
Yeah. I mean, that's the first quickest definition I can think of.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we understand where that comes from. But for us, it's more about, can we sit down and understand each other and validate each other's feelings and say, okay, you want this, I want this. And it's not about, okay, so if you want to paint the room blue and I want to paint the room yellow, like, do we both compromise and meet in the middle and paint it green? Well, neither of us wanted it green, right? So if we're meeting in the middle, then I don't think anybody wins. It's more about like, how can we find something where we both want it? So if we go with blue, then I'll want it to be blue, and it's not going to be that I'm giving up on what I want and gonna, because when that happens, I think when we compromise a lot, what ends up happening is people end up resenting because they didn't really want to compromise. They gave up on what they really wanted for the other person, but that's not what they really wanted, and it comes up in resentment.
I'll give you a really good example. The naming of our business, the Golden Marriage. Okay, so it used to be like this is. I actually bought the domain like 5 years plus. Like I had an idea. I wanted to call it, whatever name it was.
The relation saving ship.
Yeah,
That's what you wanted to call it.
relation saving ship, and I had a logo in my head, and it was like it was so cool. But then when we started really talking about coming together to bringing this to life, she's like, I'm okay with it. I could roll with it, but like I don't love it. I'm like, you know what? I had enough maturity and enough ability to press my ego down to the point where I was like, hey, you know what? Let's come up with it together.
Something we both love.
Something we both love, and because we're gonna be behind this, for a long time. Like I don't want her to not love the name of our business.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, that's great wisdom, Brian, because you don't have to see that. Even that hardly feels like a compromise, because
No.
if you want the other person to be happy with whatever situation it is or whatever circumstance, in this case the name of your business, if you're both working on this together, you both want to be all in. So it's a compromise, but then it almost isn't. And so it's great
No.
that,
It's
Yeah.
not
It
exactly.
doesn't feel like a
yeah,
compromise.
It doesn't feel like a compromise, but that's the whole thing. In these modern day marriages, a lot of people, even though they might not realize it, it feels like they're like against each other. Like they forget that like marriage is an elective choice where we're supposed to be on the same team.
But that's what we're taught, is that to be happy in a relationship, it is full of compromise and sacrifice. And that is depressing. Like a compromising and sacrifice is a depressive energy. It will bring you down. And so we're about, hey, like let's create a relationship where we both win, and we do everything with love. And if it doesn't feel right, then we don't do it.
That's fantastic. And I think the thing that helps the most in what you're describing is that the mentioning of validating how each other feels. You said that earlier. And so when you validate how the other person feels, it immediately changes the dynamic, and it's like, okay, let's find something we can both agree on. I think that's important. I think when you don't do that, then it's that hard, depressing, negative, I have to give something up mentality. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
I couldn't do that for the longest time. Meaning like she would say something, like I'm struggling with something or whatever. She would tell me, and then I would just come in right away, try to fix it. Right? Like there was no validating nothing.
And actually, it was a lot of judgment, and
Right.
we tend to do that. We did that a lot in our relationship, and we still do that occasionally. We might have slip ups here and there.
Yeah.
But like, say today here is a very dreary, rainy day, and previously I used to get, and I still do get, really impacted by the weather. And I would say, oh, I'm having a hard day because the weather sucks. And then he'll be like, why do you let the weather affect your mood like that?
Yeah, we're supposed to
know.
be positive. Like,
Yeah,
what's
you should
wrong
be,
with
you
you?
should be more positive.
What's wrong with you?
And he would be angry that I was upset because he didn't want me to feel upset, but he didn't understand that him judging me for being upset was making me more upset. And what was lacking there is validation, right? And so, what we've now shifted our thoughts and our tone to reflect more of, oh well, it's understandable why you have that perspective, and in fact, your perspective can never be wrong. Because Mike, when we're looking at you right now, you're looking at us, and we're seeing two different images, right? And and so what you see cannot possibly be wrong because that's what you see, right? And this is that understanding that has been a total game changer in our relationship. Is that neither of us are ever wrong.
Yeah.
We just have a different view right now,
Yeah.
and that's what it is.
That's great to be able to have that perspective. That's a healthy perspective in a relationship for sure. Brian, you said something earlier, and it was more along the lines of trying to fix Nancy's problem with the weather. Do you think that's a guy thing
Oh,
where
big time.
we just try to fix
Big time,
everything?
dude. Yo, I was always like carrying a hammer, yo. Like just like, oh, you got a problem. I'm gonna hammer it in. I'm gonna hammer
Yeah.
it. So I do think it is because it is trained in our society like that,
Yeah.
and a lot of dudes, I mean, they just go into fix mode right away because they need to be the man. They need to fix things, right? But I feel it's more important to get to a point of awareness and consciousness to really understand and be empathetic towards like what someone actually needs in terms of support. And like I wasn't always like this. I mean, I'm only like this because of her. Like she drove all this out of me. I couldn't speak before, meaning there was no way I'm gonna be like talking about stuff.
Really?
No, we've
Yeah.
been together since high school, guys. Like,
Wow.
so it's like it's been a process. Okay, don't
Yeah.
don't think, oh yeah, this dude can talk. No, I did not want to talk about anything, especially
Yeah.
feelings.
Right.
Yeah. And now you're a counselor.
Yeah. Well, we consider ourselves coaches.
Oh yeah, coaches, but more like the cool thing is we see it as like we're the golden marriage tour guides. It's like they're down here at like base camp, and like they want to climb this golden marriage mountain where they can get closer, deeper, and stronger together as a married couple. And that's how we see, what we do, how we serve.
Yeah. Counseling is a lot about, actually, we don't really think the counseling model is actually very helpful because it can be a lot of telling people what to do. And it can be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a Band-Aid, where it's just often what happens is a couple who's struggling in a relationship goes for a couple sessions, and then they say, okay, work on this, and you might work on it, and you might feel better for a week or two or a month or two, But unless you get into the deep root of what's actually happening here and address those things, it's all going to be surface level. And so every week when people do counseling or therapy, they're just talking about what's happened in the last week. And they're like, oh, he said this and she said this. Okay, so what can you say next week that'll make it better? Oh, I can say this next time. And they're always working on communication skills. Whereas we believe that we don't need to work on communication
We
skills.
know.
Yeah, we just need to show up as people who are whole individuals and can really know who we are and what we want and speak our truth and be in our truth and just speak from our heart and be in alignment with ourselves. And when you can do that
Yeah.
consistently, then you can build that stronger relationship. So we're just here to guide people, show them a different way of seeing things and sharing with them some blind spots that they don't necessarily have access to.
That's great, Nancy. And that sounds like a much more personalized approach where you're going to get more results than just doing cookie cutter counseling. And, well, next time she does this, you do this. And
Yeah.
just following directions. I don't
Right.
think you're really growing.
Right.
So that's great that you guys have identified that. Talk about humility in a marriage. Is humility important?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think humility it relates to what we were talking about earlier about owning your stuff. Is being at a place where you can take responsibility and let go of your ego. That's how I view humility as doing what's right for your relationship
Yeah.
and for the greater good of the family over doing what's right for you and feeling vindicated or being right
Entitled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really has to do with your ability to look at this like it's a team sport. It's not about me against you, because if I defeat you, then like I'm the victor. Where
And I'm the victim.
and that's the thing where that type of thinking destroys marriages all over. And that's why we say we don't really believe in the whole marriage counseling and marriage therapy model, because it's like, people go there and they're still kind of against each other, and people go for decades without really resolving
Or growing.
the issue. Like, we know personally some friends of ours that have gone to marriage counseling for like over 20 years, and we asked them, like, why do you keep going? And then they're like, well, we're familiar with this person and it's comfortable.
She
Like,
gets us and
Yeah.
they feel better for a few months and then they'll fall back into these patterns. But when it comes to humility, I think really it's about staying grounded. It's just being able to let things go again, like letting go of your ego.
Yeah. And I think the lack of it is probably one of the most destructive things a marriage or even a relationship between a man and a woman it can be so destructive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Like one of our clients just shared with us for, 20 years in their relationship, her husband was, drinking alcohol a lot and it really impacted the family. And when she was able to have compassion for him and understand that he wasn't drinking because he was being an asshole, he was drinking because he was in pain and he was struggling with stuff. And when she had the humility to say, hey, I was contributing to his pain. I was judging him. I wasn't giving him empathy or compassion. And she owned it. And that was able to shift a lot of the dynamics in the relationship, and it does take a lot of humility to be able to take that ownership.
and what ended up happening there was, because he felt safer and not judged, he was able to open up and share things that he's never shared with anybody to her during our coaching period. And it was so powerful, because when a man feels safe to share just anything with his wife, and there's nothing to hide. I mean, that's like the ultimate thing, right?
Well,
Like
that's connection.
you're only as sick as your secrets. I learned that from one of my mentors, Joe Polish.
You guys provide coaching services to other couples. You've shared some of the psychology behind that, for lack of a better word, or just how your approach, I guess, and how it's different from counseling. What are some of, without divulging like, client personal information, but what are some of the most common problems you see in the marriages of the people who come to you for help?
Oh man, can I
Yeah.
can I start? So there's this. Oh man, I'm so proud of this dude. He came to us, invested in himself without the wife coming in, which is like in our culture, that's you're not going to see that very often. But his issue was she was just chirping at him, like just like gnawing at him, and then his issue was that the kids started jumping in and it was really eating away at him because he felt like they were ganging up on him and just always chewing him out and talking bad about him. So he came to us, and his main question at the beginning was, how do I set boundaries? This is getting out of control. I just want to end the generational trauma of this pattern.
Yeah, the pattern being
Yeah.
her controlling everything, telling him what to do, and no matter what he did, he always messed up and got it wrong. And that is something we see in not just him, but a lot of the couples we work with.
So many.
It's this dynamic where the woman is, you have two alphas in a relationship essentially, and the woman can be very dominant, and it's what we were talking about earlier. And so it can leave men feeling like not good enough. Where can they show up in a relationship? Other problems we see is the woman feeling like, how come he's not taking initiative in the home? How come he's not helping?
That's
I
right.
feel overwhelmed. And just, one of them being, or both of them being addicted to their work, worrying about money all the time. And it sounds like, a lot of relationships will think money is the thing that's creating problem in their relationship. But it will often be, most of the time, it's because they don't have a good relationship with money, and they don't know how to work on their health and their mindset so that they can be grounded enough and be in a place where they can make more money.
We'll share the example where you were just talking with the lady and then the husband.
Yeah, well, one of our clients, she came to us for health-related stuff, and she's just like, I'm not happy in our relationship, but I really want to work on me, and I want to be better wife and mom. And then when she started working on herself and going through our process, then it shifted the energy in the home, and he was just like, oh, I see you doing this stuff. Let me go to the gym too. I used to love going to the gym, but I've been stressed at work. I've been focusing on work, and he hated his job. Anyway, and then he started working out, had better energy, and then he got hired at another job where he was making $60,000 more a year. And
Wow.
it people can say, oh, it's luck, but we believe it's the energy shifts in the home when one person starts growing and reaching towards health. So, I mean, the problem we see there is the overarching problems we see is that people lose themselves in their relationship, and
Yeah.
they're not focusing on their health first, mental, physical, and emotional. And when you can work on that and grow there, anything else is possible. You can grow your business. You can have a better career. You can be better in the home. You can be better in your community. Like, we really do believe everything comes from this foundation.
Yeah. And you guys touched on something interesting there, and I was going to ask you about financing, finances. Yeah, do you do financing?
Yeah.
No, about finances, and so you guys are of the opinion that it's more a bad relationship with money or poor money management skills versus financial adversity.
Man.
For example, someone loses, a husband loses a job and
Yeah.
suddenly the income's cut in half. is that never a driver in strain in the relationship just because they're tight on funds?
No. It's
Great question.
it can be a strain for sure, but this actually has a lot to do with the genesis of us coming together, creating this business, this opportunity, this invitation for people, because like we went through so many times where we would just like make mistakes with money or poor investments or whatever, and then we would look at each other like, oh, most marriages would be broken by now with these types of things happening. And that's why we always talk about how important it is to have such a solid foundation in the marriage, in the family, because like you can take our property, you can take our home, we'll be fine in a small box. It's never like that. That's where we come from.
So, for example, like last year, I made a mistake and hired these people to do some renovations. And so we lost $150,000. They ended up having not a real business and no insurance. And we look at that as a mistake, yes, but here's an opportunity to grow. How can we be better for this? Because it's already done. We already lost the money. And it's not that it didn't cause stress, because of course it does.
Oh,
and
yeah.
When someone loses a job, that is stressful, and there will be days where things are feeling like you're feeling the pinch. But when you focus on having such a solid relationship that you're like, okay, what can we do to be better because of this? Like you have to be so strong in your relationship to be able to handle this adversity. And the way we look at it, and it comes back to perspective, the way we look at adversity is an opportunity to grow. Is this thing that's happening, it's happening for us. How can we make this happen for us? And so with that, we're looking at this renovation got wrong as now we're building something that's much better. It's going to look much better. It's going to be more functional. We're working with better people. And this makes us have to work harder and help more people so we can be able to do this.
Yeah.
And so
It's just money.
Yeah.
it's just money.
Yeah. That's a very positive mindset you have with that, Nancy, and I think that's great, and I'm sure that contributes to the strength of the marriage between you guys. That's really good. Do you think that do you find that a lot of men struggle with the work life, home life balance?
Yeah, they do, and that's why they come to us. And a lot of men, and I can speak from personal experience, when things are off, we like to check out, or that's our default. Like we'll just go and stay at work longer than we need to be, just to be away from the family, just to be away, because that causes more stress than work sometimes. Or we just go out and I didn't personally do this. I don't really drink, but like a lot of people, they would go to either alcohol or porn or whatever to kind of like escape, right? And that's just kind of what we do. We climb into a cave because we don't know how to deal with these emotions and things being thrown at us. And then when you pair that up with a wife that's controlling and needs this and that and the other thing, expect things from you, it's like it can be a lot too sometimes for the men.
Do you think that there's a lack of maturity on the part of men for not putting their foot down and addressing what's going on or their emotions, or whether they feel their spouse is too controlling or whatever it is? Do you think there's a certain level of maturity lacking there on the part of men who struggle with that?
Yeah, so I love that question. I would more go towards like the lack of courage, because when you, and we're not here to judge anyone.
Yeah. I'm not trying to sound
No,
judgmental
no,
in
of
any
course not.
way, but I'm
No,
just
of
trying
course not. But
yeah.
what's really lacking is the courage to be like, well, hey, this is my truth, right? Understand societally, like in our society, men are known as people who would never ask for help, never ask for directions, even if they're lost. Like, understand that this is socially acceptable, right? So when that's the case, you know, us men, sometimes we don't realize that asking for help, like this is me raising my hand, is actually one of the bravest things that we can do for our family, for the people that we love. But we can't see it. Like when we're in it, sometimes we just can't see it. What is required is courage most of the time.
Yeah, and lack of I used to think it was lack of maturity, and I think a lot of times women who, when we get together with our girlfriends and bash our husbands, that cultural acceptance or norm rather, we would talk about how men are immature, and that's why women tend to like older men, even though it seems like all men are immature. And so I don't think it's maturity. I actually think it's lack of consciousness. It's lack of awareness of how we got sold this image again of what marriage is supposed to be and how each person is supposed to show up, and then we're not aware that we bought in, and so we're just going through the motions following this script. And I think women are just as guilty as men are, this lack of awareness, and they play into it. We both play into it, and I think women are equally unaware of it. So I think it requires both people to wake up to, okay, what part do I play? How do I want to contribute? How do I not want to be reeled into the have-tos and the shoulds and need-to-dos? And how can I contribute in our family and really make a positive impact?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really great point, Nancy. And Brian, going back to something you said, I never understood that guy's direction thing. I guess I'm not a typical guy because
Yeah.
I value my time more than proving I know where I'm going when I'm lost. I mean, GPS has changed the world, right? But there have been cases where my GPS maybe was older or something, and years ago, and I was in a new development, and I couldn't find a particular street or a way out of where I was. But it's just easier to just ask somebody than waste 20 minutes. I don't have time. That's my thing. But I don't understand guys who burn all that time. I guess they don't value their time like I do. I got things to do. That's just a little side note. We don't have to do a big discourse on it, but
But that's probably not a relevant example anymore because of GPS. But I think still guys are less likely still to say, I don't know where I'm going with my emotions. I recently spoke to a guy who was a huge leader in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu movement in the world, and he said something to me. Wasn't it Carlos Machado? Machado. He said, I think men were sent to this earth because the hardest. My question was, what's the hardest thing you had to do, or something like that? And he said, I think men were put on this earth to figure out what we're supposed to do with our emotions. And here we have this amazing fighter, world leader, and it's just like, this is something that men aren't equipped to do. This is women, we are more in touch with our emotions more. This is our femininity, right? And so men who are lost in the emotional compass without an emotional compass, they're afraid to ask, and they don't even know they can ask. Like, I'm feeling these things. I don't even know what I'm feeling or how I'm feeling or what I'm supposed to feel. Can someone help me? And I think that's more of what it is.
Well, when I was younger, I was told that, boys don't cry. And that's probably a very common type of thing that gets spread from generations ago.
And then now they're saying boys can cry all the time, and that's not really the answer either.
Are they saying that?
Sure. Boys can be women now.
Oh, shoot.
Men can be women, and that's a different topic. Mm-hmm. But I think it comes from the same kind of cultural influences of going back to what we said initially when we started this conversation, is the pendulum has swung too far on the other side. And it's just like, okay, where can we find some balance in the middle?
Yeah, we're lacking definitive identities now, and I think it's just confused a lot of things for a lot of people. It's a good point, Nancy. I also think, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I think
you're not wrong.
Right. That's just my
Done.
perspective.
We're done.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. You guys are good. See, it's working. It's working on me. I'll have to book a session with you guys after we finish the podcast. Women are more in touch with, I don't even think in touch is the right word. Women are more nurturing just by nature than men. That's why the woman is the mother and the man is the father. The father the men don't have that same ability to nurture like women. So I wonder if women are more easily in touch with their emotions because of that nurturing kind of strength that they have that men lack. I wonder if there's a connection there. Do you guys think so?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Yeah. I even heard my mom saying to my dad, because he was playing with my son, his grandchild, and Wesley was getting upset. And my mom's like, you can't talk to him like that. Don't you know anything? And about like how to handle kids and stuff. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. And it's not that he doesn't know anything, but he doesn't have that like ability yet. It can be learned, and it just comes more naturally to some women.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So you guys have a podcast. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, we are in the middle of shooting a bunch of episodes. We'll be releasing it soon. But we basically are sharing more of what we talked about today. And we really get questions from our clients. Just like, what do they want to know more about? And we answer them on our podcast.
Yeah, so really we see it as an invitation for people who are being nudged and encouraged by their hearts and by their guts to take a look at what a golden marriage for their marriage might look like. Because, you know, this whole idea, like, that's why I brought it up earlier too. It's more about, if you're in the same home as, you know, like with the person you chose to marry, right? Wouldn't it be nice to not feel like roommates?
Yeah.
You know, it's like how can we help people get closer, deeper, and stronger together? That's the whole premise of it. And, you know, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, getting people to see things in a way they haven't seen things before, and breaking these paradigms, these traditional and even modern paradigms of what a marriage is supposed to look like, and actually creating your dream marriage from a place of heart and love, and not from a place just in your mind of what you think it's supposed to look like, because that's what you've always seen and that's what you've always known.
Mm-hmm. Well, props to you guys. You're doing good in the world and helping people, and that's always needed in the world we live in today. How can people find you guys?
They can go to our website, thegoldenmarriage.com. Sending us an email is always a good first step, because sometimes people land on our website and they're like, there's so much to do and so much to see. The easiest way to reach out is send us a DM on Instagram, goldenmarriage.88, or send us an email with any questions, and we can have conversations.
Yeah, exactly. Starting these relationships, like sometimes it's a question someone might have. Just send us a DM on Instagram, and then just start that conversation and see if we can help.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Well, keep doing the work you guys are doing, and this has been a lot of fun. Nancy Ma and Brian Hoa from thegoldenmarriage.com. Really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Mike.
having us.
Appreciate you in this opportunity to share.
Yeah, you bet. And that'll do it for this edition. We are out of here. Remember, subscribe and like this episode. Thanks for being here. I'm Mike C. Until next time. See ya.
The Mike C. Podcast.